What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Eat That Like Button 55 back at it again. And are you doom scrolling YouTube right now, looking for endless videos to waste time as your day teleports away from you? If that one hit a little too close to home, today is the perfect video for you. Today we're going to be looking at a bunch of games that just kind of make time disappear. This is kind of a super gaming channel, so I know a lot of you have done that. Oh yeah, just one more round. We can't end on a loss, and then all of a sudden it's 3 a.m. and everything goes to, oh my god, you know what I mean? But we don't really need to stay on the intro for too long for this one, so let's just get into a bunch of games that will absolutely decimate your time, and if you ever just want to fast forward life, these are the games for you. First up on the list, we have Bloons TD6. You know, cute little monkey game. What could possibly go wrong? Bloons is one of those deceptively simple games, but trust me, the easy to play, hard to master formula is actually the #1 recipe for just locking you to your screen for the next 5 years. Just for reference, before we start, I spent about $3.80 Canadian on this game, and this is my hour count, by the way, just in case you wanted a warning of what you were getting into if it wasn't already kind of obvious. Bloons is a tower defense game, so a bunch of balloons, or I guess in this case they're actually called balloons, they pull up in a row and you place different types of monkeys to shoot darts, cannons, lasers, whatever, and it pops the balloons and everything is happy. If the balloons reach the end of the map, you lose lives, and if you lose all your lives, you lose the map. There are different difficulties, different challenge modifiers, a bunch of different upgrades you can get. There's a lot of natural progression right off the bat. For example, each different monkey has 3 different upgrade paths you can go. You can put 5 points into one path and 2 points into other, and mix and match between the 3 paths, and each of the 3 paths ends in like a super monkey that you could, it's just a really strong version of whatever the path you picked is. And some monkeys have this thing called a paragon, where if you have 3 of the tier 5s, you can make a super one. Lots and lots of things. The point is, you have to earn XP by using the monkey in your maps to slowly unlock these upgrades, and that's already 1 point of progression you will be invested in. The next point of progression is called monkey knowledge, and these are pretty much just points and bonuses that make the game easier, and you just get it by playing and leveling up. So this one kind of comes naturally, but it is addicting to go into all the monkey knowledge trees and pick out the ones you like and buff up your favorite towers. Then we have heroes. These are pretty much like the main character monkeys. At the start of every map, you choose one hero that you want to play, and in the map you can place it down like another tower, and they all have unique abilities and have the added bonus of getting stronger throughout the map. So the more you play, the more they pop, the more XP they get, the stronger that monkey gets. The catch is you only start with a handful of free heroes, and the rest you need to buy with monkey cash, which you can earn just through playing the game. There is a lot of heroes to choose from at this point, and you can also save up your money to buy skins for the heroes if you want to do that. I think at this point I have every hero and a skin for all of them, so yeah, it's a bit of a time waster, if you know what I mean. But yeah, like I have one guy that he has a bunch of ships that follow him. I have this one girl I use with a bunch of swords. My main girl, she's like a sun goddess or some shit, I don't know, but they look really cool in the game and it's really fun to unlock them. So that's another point of progression in Bloons' favor, I guess. But the main time waster in this game, for me at least, is if you are a completionist that likes little shiny things, this one will get you. So basically, every single map in this game has 3 difficulties: easy, medium, and hard. Pretty simple, right? But once you beat the map on easy, medium, and hard, there are different challenge mode modifiers. For example, in easy mode, there is beat the game with primary monkeys only, which is just a certain type of monkey that you'll understand if you play the game, right? But it's pretty much just limiting the amount of towers you can use, right? And then, you know, in medium difficulty, once you beat that, you can do something like military monkeys only, which is beating it with that type of tower. And there's a bunch of these little challenge modes. The thing is, once you beat every single challenge available for a map and you pretty much master that map, it gives you a shiny black border saying you got all the medals and you did everything well and you're such a good boy. And let's just say you can be very, very addicted to black bordering these maps. And as a side note, on the harder maps, this shit is not easy, by the way. The final difficulty is like no power-ups, 1 life, have to go to round 100. Like, it gets real in the later maps, I'm not gonna lie. Personally, my least favorite challenge is the one that just generates less money. I think it's called half cash. That infuriates my brain even more than like the harder difficulties, because those ones are honestly kind of fun, since like half the things I was kind of self-imposing on myself anyway. Like, I always like going around 100 and I never use like their shitty gamba mechanics, but black bordering all these maps is a mega time waster. The early ones, you can kind of figure it out later, get a couple strategies going, but once you start trying to black border these harder maps, oh my god, prepare for the time sink. You will see that defeat screen over and over and over again. And if you like these little shiny things, it will teleport, bro. Yo, oh, let me just see how far I can go past round 100. Ha 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 ha, right? And then you're on round 600. It's been 7 hours. Your screen is literally unrecognizable. Like, Bloons, if you want a simple game that can just waste your time and there's a bunch of unlocks and things to do, that's also kind of just a fun game, pick up the Bloons TD6 and I'll see you in 7 years once you black border your final map. So next up on the list, we got Balatro, and Balatro is a roguelike game, so you can already see the time waste elements coming into play here. Balatro is a poker roguelike, which sounds super weird, but then you play like 3 runs and you're like, oh my god, I'm playing Balatro. So you pretty much just play your best poker hand to hit a high number, and if you hit the high number, you pass the round and go on to the next round. There's bosses at the end, there's like 3 thingies, and the last thingy's a boss, and then you go up a level, and if you beat 8 levels, or they're called antes in the game, you know, just like in poker, then you win the run. So you gotta put together a good deck and get some good jokers. So what are jokers? Jokers are pretty much just modifiers. You can have 5 at a time, and they will multiply and add points to your hand and do a bunch of fancy effects that get you going and get you into the run. The thing with all the jokers is there is a lot of them, and you have to unlock them, some with very, very specific weird challenges, like play 5 golden cards, which is something that like you might do in one run, but you're not necessarily going to, or discard a royal flush, which is a really good hand, but if you discard it, you get one of the best jokers in the game unlocked, and that's really cool, honestly. There's also a bunch of other cards you can unlock, like planet cards. There's some hidden ones for some fancy decks, etc. Bunch of unlocks. You know how the roguelike formula goes. But there is just something about Balatro that keeps you coming back for just one more round, and most of that comes from the completionist aspect. So in Balatro, you can unlock different starting decks. Different starting decks do different things. You unlock them as you go. For example, the red deck that you start with gives you 1 extra discard. Okay, cool. But then you can unlock stuff like a deck that takes out all the royal cards, a deck that's completely randomized. You unlock more decks as you go, and then you have to level them up, so to speak. So when you beat a run in Balatro, you unlock the next stake, which is kind of like the next difficulty modifier. It starts with red stake, I believe, which just makes you get no money on your first level. And then if you beat red stake, you go up and etc, etc. And there's a bunch of different difficulty modifiers that you can stack on top of it. But that difficulty modifier only unlocks for the deck that you beat the thing on. So if I beat red stake difficulty with my red deck, I'll unlock the next stake, but again, only for the red deck that I'm playing at the time. The completionist aspect comes from beating gold stake, which is the highest difficulty modifier on all of the unlockable decks. And while that sounds simple on paper, kinda, yeah, it's not so easy, let me tell you. Gold stake adds a stupid amount of negative modifiers to you, like permanent cards, semi-permanent cards, things you can't discard, so much less money. It's a lot to manage, and will take you a lot of runs to get used to knowing what's good jokers to pick up, what should I pick up, when should I just save my money and gain some interest. And there's honestly a lot of complexity in the game, and as you start going for these completionist runs, you'll be like, hey, maybe I can do the next difficulty modifier on this deck, or hey, I like the blue deck, let me try to beat all the difficulties on this deck. And that just keeps going and going and going, and then you're one more round, and then you're doing math calculations, and you're like, bro, what am I doing with my life? Why am I multiplying things from a little joker that's giving me more points just to beat a poker game. But the thing with Balatro is you can master it if you're good enough. It's like something like if you played Teamfight Tactics from League of Legends. It starts off and you're like, well, this is just kind of RNG, isn't it? But then you get better and better and you're like, oh my god, I gotta save my money, I gotta get this joke, oh my god, sell that, yo, picked up that tarot pack, holy. And you just kind of, the mastery aspect as you get better and better and you're able to play higher difficulty modifiers, it really just keeps bringing you back. And it's, Balatro's a game where it's just like you have a couple spare minutes, oh, I gotta go out in 10 minutes, let me play a couple rounds of Balatro, you know what I mean? And then you lock back in and all of a sudden you're Gamba again, trying to figure out what joker's gonna help you the most in your run, and then all of a sudden you missed your appointment and it's 10 hours later and you're still just playing Balatro. So if you want a roguelike that is very fun, very addicting, and mostly just a game where you can pop in for a couple rounds and then it might take over your life and you'll play 100 rounds, or if you just want to play 3 rounds here and there and you know you got a good amount of self-control, Balatro is a crazy fun pickup. Can't believe that this game almost won Game of the Year, a nominee, which is kind of crazy for a random indie game. It is really fun, really addicting, so please do yourself a favor and try out some Balatro. And now we come to Path of Exile. I believe the gameplay you're seeing in the background is from Path of Exile 2, which just came out, but this mostly applies to PoE 1 because it has more updates, but I'm sure it'll apply to PoE 2 in the future. Either way, Path of Exile is a game that you will sink hours into if you fall down the rabbit hole. Path of Exile is one of those games where if you find yourself sitting there like, I really just want to sink my teeth into something and like drown a bunch of like practice and dedication into one game real quick, and you haven't really found a game to dump all your effort into, look no further than PoE. For reference, I have, I think, almost 1.5 thousand hours in this game, maybe more, and I am still out here watching beginner's guides, by the way. This game has a borderline unlimited amount of content, and I warn you now, if you're not the fastest in the brain and a bunch of stuff seems confusing to you, please avoid this game, because this game is like actually nerd type shit at higher levels. Oh my lord, the amount of calculations and things, bro, I don't even understand. Just follow a build guide type thing. So PoE is a RPG similar to the likes of Diablo and Last Epoch, but PoE has been around a long time, and what they do is every couple months they'll add a new something called a league, and each new league adds a new gameplay mechanic that you have to learn, master, and eventually will get added back into the game in a couple months. The leagues work on cycles, so they add a league, you get a new mechanic, then after that league's over, a new league starts, that mechanic leaves, but eventually in the future it'll come back in a new update. The thing with PoE is just like, here, take a look at this skill tree, by the way. Yep, that is the skill tree. Yeah, have fun managing that as a new player. What most players do is they look up the good players and just copy one of their characters and see what they're building, and you try to understand it as you go, but you really just let the smart guys do it. But eventually you start to understand, okay, I can get some damage here, maybe I need some health nodes over here, ooh, there's a really good thing for my build on this side of the tree, I should path over there. But then PoE hits you with this. So what is this, you might ask? This is another skill tree, but for your levels, by the way. So PoE has a 10-act campaign. You start in Act 1, you go, you kill some bosses, and then you move on to Act 2, etc., until you get to Act 10, you beat the final boss. Woo, you beat the game, right? No, sorry, brother, the tutorial is done. The real game starts here. Now you get to what's called maps. What are maps? There's tier 1 to 16 maps. You start at tier 1, and they're pretty much just levels filled with monsters and a boss that you clear out that have really good items. You farm what tier 1 maps, you get items from your tier 1 maps, you put them on, you go to tier 2 maps, etc., until you drop more currency to level up your character gets stronger, you know the deal. But again, yes, this is a skill tree for your maps. So putting stuff into the skill tree makes different things and different mechanics appear on your map and modifies it in a absolutely countless amount of ways I can't even begin to explain to you. I don't even know what I'm talking about half the time. time when it comes to this game, because there is just so much content. You have this as your skill tree, this as a skill tree for your levels. You have a number of ascendancies. There's a bunch of classes. Each class has 3 different upgraded classes you can go into, and your build changes depending on which one you go into, and then you need to use outside resources and a bunch of other websites, and oh my god, this fucking game. If you are a new player and you're trying to go into this solo, please don't. I'm sorry. You actually will have your life destroyed, and you'll get to Act 3 and hit a hard roadblock and just be like, this game is garbage, and quit. Because honestly, if you're not following a guide or you have a friend to teach you, this game is almost impossible to learn, at least the first Path of Exile. If you want to get into it, PoE 2 will be free in a little bit. I think you have to pay for it now, but I think it will be free when it actually releases. PoE 2 is just coming out, so if you want to start fresh and learn stuff from the beginning, highly recommend trying out Path of Exile 2. It's a bit more of a Souls-like than it is an ARPG. I personally prefer the fast gameplay of PoE 1, but if you want to try it and you don't want to be super overwhelmed, there's still a lot. Trust me, the skill tree is still destructive, but you can definitely get a better hang of PoE 2 since there's not as much base content in the game. But PoE is a no-lifer heaven. If you just want to grind, min, max, and grind, this will be your game. It starts off slow for sure. My friend had to convince me to try it a couple times because I quit so early because I thought it was boring, but then once you start getting later and your build gets online and stuff starts getting blended like butter, oh my god, these enemies are dropping me money, and it's so nice. Such a good feeling, but there is such a high barrier to entry, and you will need a bunch of external tools if you want to play optimally. You'll need a loot filter to highlight all the good items, since there's no way you can possibly know from the millions of drops what items are good. You can use this thing called Path of Building, which gives you a detailed guide on how to build your character, because again, this is the skill tree in this game. But after you get it and you start grinding and you're getting your money, you start looking into economy websites to see what's selling for the most. You start trading with other players, which sucks, by the way, because they never respond, but you keep on going, and there's a bunch of bosses I haven't even fought yet, and I've played this game for over 1,000 hours. If you want to sink your teeth into something, give PoE a try, but definitely a warning on this one, you will have a lot of content to wrap your head around. And now we come to my probably most played game next to League of Legends, sadly, Dead by Daylight. Oh, this game. There's some other games on this list like Bloons and some stuff we'll get into later that really drag you in and waste your time in one session. You just get there, you lock in, you keep clicking next round, all that type of stuff. Dead by Daylight is a little bit different. This game wastes your time in a different way. What ends up happening is you log in, you play a couple rounds, you log off, and then a couple of minutes later you're like, oh my god, I can go for another DBD game, and then you log back in, and the cycle continues for the rest of your life until you're just suffering eternally. DBD is a asymmetric horror game, kind of, where it's one killer versus 4 survivors. The killer has to kill these survivors by placing them on a hook 3 times ish, and the survivors have to power up 5 generators by repairing them and then escape through the exit door. Pretty simple on paper, but let me tell you, there is a lot of hidden complexity to this game. There is a bunch of different killers in the game, and I mean a lot, with some horror icons like Myers, Freddy, Ghostface, etc. that all have a different power. Each killer has a different ability that they can use, and depending on which killer you play, your playstyle has to change entirely. One of the killers, the nurse, can do a teleport like in Dishonored. There's a guy named the Trapper, the poster boy for the game. He places bear traps and tries to herd the people into them. There's a guy named the Wraith that can go invisible, etc, etc. Each killer plays very differently. Survivors pretty much are all the same and are just kind of costumes for each other, but each character, killers and survivors included, come with 3 different perks. There are some perks available by default, but when you level up a survivor and prestige them by just putting points into them from playing the game, you unlock their unique perks on all the other characters, and making a build with the right perks is the key to success in Dead by Daylight. Now, don't get me wrong, the grind in this game is long. If you want to hear about time wasting, look no further. To pretty much get everything unlocked, quote unquote, quote, you'd have to prestige each character 3 times. And there is a lot of characters, and each one prestiges at level 50. And for reference, I have this amount of time in the game and have been playing the game since it came out, and I am close to having them all. There's still a bunch of survivors I have to get to prestige 3. I am close. If you are a new player, yeah man, good luck. If you want to win, you can look up which perks are good and level up those characters, or you can just level up your favorites. That's probably one of the good ways to go as well. But DBD has a lot of intricacies. It starts off and if you're playing survivor, you're just hiding from the killer. Oh no, is he gonna find me? Whatever am I gonna do? And then as you get better, you're like, wait a minute, yo, I can run the killer around this little place for a bit and I can waste his time a little bit. And then you get better and you're like, oh wait, I know this place is super safe, I can run here. And then you're better and better, and then once you get to the best level at high MMR, you're like, oh my god, run here, connect this into this, jump over the window, oh my god, I'm so good. And if you're on the killer side, you learn what the survivors do. The main thing with DBD is mind games. You have to trick the other guy because you knew what he was gonna do, but you did it first, and you did the other thing instead, and then you got him, and boom, and down the survivor. I love that. It's pretty hard to explain, honestly, but I'm sure the gameplay is doing a lot more work than my explaining is. But DBD is a game you will hop into, play a couple rounds, and then just come back for more. I personally play killer the most, but recently I got into competitive all of last year at the start of 2024, so I've been playing both sides quite a lot, and honestly, it is replayable from both sides, but to be honest, it is 2 entirely separate games. If you're on the killer side of things, you're learning how to get the most value out of your ability, you're learning survivors' natural habits so you can exploit them, you're learning about the maps that you're playing on. Oh, I know something's there, that's too safe, I need to drop this chase and go for another guy. Oh, this game is going to be really rough, I need to get this guy out of the game as soon as possible. Stuff like that. If you're playing survivor, you're learning what buildings are the most safe that can buy you the most amount of time and help your team to victory. You're learning when's a good time to heal, when's a good time to help my team, when's a good time to play for myself, what's the most optimal way to run around this rock so the killer can't catch me. It's really 2 different games, but it keeps you coming back for more. You want more perks, you want more powers, you want to get better and better, you want to play this killer, you want to play this killer, and it really keeps you coming back. And there's so many different characters from a bunch of different mega horror icons and game icons. We got Resident Evil, we got Scream, we got almost everything. The devs really decided to make it a museum for horror icons, video games, anime, movies, and stuff like that alike. So if you like horror and you like just little fun, play a couple rounds, you might really enjoy DBD. You also might hate DBD, by the way. I'm not gonna lie, the community is one of the most toxic I have ever seen, and that's coming from a long-time League of Legends player. So yeah, it's not amazing. A lot of people hop on, play a couple games, get angry, and then come back, and just because they can't quit. So please use discretion. I recommend just playing whatever's fun. If you're having fun, you're doing it right. If you have a friend that knows what they're doing that can help you out, please play with friends. Survivor especially is way more fun than with friends, sorry. Don't play Survivor by yourself if you can help it. Killer is a rough time if the survivors know what they're doing, but most survivors don't in normal lobbies, and unless you're planning on getting into competitive, you don't really have to worry about things. So just have fun, play a couple rounds, and give it a shot, and who knows, in a couple years, you might just be like, damn, why do I randomly have 5,000 hours in this game? It really keeps you coming back, and is definitely a mega time waste, in my opinion. Now, next up on the list, we got Slime Rancher, and just like Path of Exile, you're seeing gameplay from Slime Rancher 2 right now, but Slime Rancher 1 is the one that is entirely finished with all of its content. Slime Rancher 2 is currently in early access, but the same things apply nonetheless. Slime Rancher is kind of a Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon farming type game, but also not really. It's kind of hard to describe. So what you do is you spawn in, and there's a bunch of cute little slimes, and then you go pick them up, and you entrap them in cages, and then you kind of grow your farm. You can breed 2 different types of slimes together to make a combination slime, and then the slimes drop you money, which lets you get upgrades, which lets you upgrade your farm, which lets you get cooler slimes and cooler types of slimes in different habitats. I said cooler slimes twice, but you get the point. There's upgrades, and there is slimes. You get slimes give you money, money gives you upgrades, and you keep going and going in an endless cycle until you beat the game. Well, at least in Slime Rancher 1, because that's the one that has a ending. So why does this game waste my time, you might ask to Mr. Knight? And Mr. Knight responds with, because you are always busy. There's always something to do, and you always kind of feel like you're on a time limit. You see, your slimes get hungry, and they have to eat different types of food, so you gotta go out and collect the food, and you come back, and then you feed them, but then you gotta take their money, so you take their money, and then you put the money in the thing, and then you get money, and then you buy upgrades, but now you have to go get more slimes. So, oh wait, you gotta feed the ones that you already have, so they don't get angry and become mean slimes. So then you go do that, but then it's nighttime now, so then you gotta sleep till the next day, and so on and so on, and you're always doing something, whether you're exploring, collecting, looking at your manual, getting new slimes, figuring out what upgrades you want to do, getting some new technology later in the game. There is a lot to do, and you're always busy, and you kind of don't realize how fast time is flying. You're just like playing and you're chilling on your farm. It's a very relaxing and tranquil experience. Actually, beautiful game, especially Slime Rancher 2. Once this game is done, oh my god, masterpiece. Look at this beautiful world, and it's not even finished yet. This is just the first area of the game. There is so much to do, especially Slime Rancher 1, and you really just get caught up in all of it. It's a beautiful world, and finding all these new slimes and unlocking new areas, it just kind of takes over your brain unintentionally, but it is a really fun game, especially for any of you that are looking for gifts to get for your girlfriends and you want to get them into games. I always recommend Slime Rancher as the girlfriend gift. Oh my god, the little cute things, and they start a farm. It is absolutely perfect. Unfortunately, I don't think it's multiplayer yet, but oh my god, Slime Rancher is the couples game and the single player game, bro. If you just want to pick up the game, if you're depressed like me, yo, pick up Slime Rancher. It is a depression cure for an amount of time. Oh my god, you just get lost in the beauty, and you can't be upset when there's all these cute little slimes that want to have food and you gotta feed them. It's such a nice experience. And if you're into those like kind of farming games, and like something like Dragonvale, anyone remember that? If you just like getting these new types of slimes and putting them together, seeing what cool combinations you make, it's a bit of a sandbox, honestly, but there is a story to it as well. If you're into that, there's a bunch of little story notes you can pick up around the world, but it is a lot of like a farming sim exploration game where you just explore the world, find new areas, find new types of slimes, figure out what they like to eat, get the food, feed them, upgrade your facilities and your management type things. If you're into all of that, try Slime Rancher. Beautiful game. It's just kind of your time disappears as you explore the beautiful, tranquil landscape, and if you just want to drop a couple hours into some cute little slime thing, nothing too intense, a nice little casual sit back and relax type game, Slime Rancher is definitely for you. Both 1 and 2, highly recommend giving them a try. Coming up next on the list, we have Dungeon Defenders. And a side note for this one, well, it can definitely get you into the sinkhole solo. Playing with friends on this one is a whole different experience that'll waste plenty of more time. So Dungeon Defenders is a tower defense game, and like a couple other games on this list, like Slime Rancher, there are a couple of variants. There's Dungeon Defenders 1, 2, and Awakened. There is a fourth one, but if you know, you know, we don't talk about that. Dungeon Defenders 1 has by far the most content, and has for some reason randomly started receiving updates again. They just added like 2 new classes, which is kind of crazy since the game is really old now. Dungeon Defenders 2 has a lot of content and is pretty streamlined, but there is like a super convoluted endgame system that makes it super grindy, and not like a fun grindy, like a, oh my god, I just need this one best in slot item to drop grindy kind of thing. And it's also a bit more pay for characters than the other games, which at least in Dungeon Defenders 1, you can just like drop $2 on a character or buy like the complete edition with all the DLC. In Dungeon Defenders 2, they kind of gate things in a weird way, but it's still definitely a more polished game. And lastly, there is Dungeon Defenders Awakened, which is kind of just a remake of Dungeon Defenders 1. So it is a lot more polished for sure, but there is also the trade-off of a lot less content since they're kind of making the game from scratch, and they're not the fastest when it comes to updates, to say the least. But that being said, all 3 of these games can qualify for the Dungeon Defenders time sinkhole. So you start off, you pick one of your main classes, you got a little mage guy, a squire, some bow girl, etc, the monk dude. There's a bunch of classes, and depending on which of the 3 games you want to play, there will be some different ones available. But you go in, and the first level, a couple goblinos come out, pew pew pew, you place your towers, you kind of get the hang of things, and you start to get some loot going. You got some browns dropping, some yellows maybe, and you pick up the stuff, you start gearing up. But But then the levels start getting a bit more complex. You know, you got some boss levels. You're like, okay, but it starts dropping better loot. And then you got some levels with 2 crystals you got to defend instead of 1, but it gets a lot of better loot. And then you start up at the difficulty. You realize there's hard mode, insane mode, and nightmare mode, slaughter mode, onslaught, and there's a bunch of different modes. And depending on the game, that also kind of varies. I know Dungeon Defenders 1 and Awakened just have streamlined difficulties. You pick the difficulty and that's the map. But Dungeon Defenders 2 works off this thing called a chaos system, which is pretty much the same thing, but it specifically adds 1 new unique enemy to mess with you every chaos level you go up. But at the end of the day, you're getting more loot. But the thing with Dungeon Defenders is the end game is absolutely wild, and you will go from being like, oh yeah, you know, a green, that's a pretty good upgrade, to I need a best in slot dragon that rolls this modifier. It's kind of crazy, and it doesn't sound like, at the beginning you never think it would get to that level, but oh, trust me, it really does. And the whole scale of Dungeon Defenders, especially in the first game, is insane. Take the monk, for example. He places these things called auras. They're pretty much just little zones that have an effect, like do lightning damage when you're in the zone, slow you when you're in the zone, etc. But they start off as just these small little globes, and then they become like map-wide engulfing auras, and everything is affected by your demonic aura. It's kind of wild, and Dungeon Defenders is just kind of like that. It starts small but ends really, really crazy and really, really fast-paced, and it's kind of insane that you go from like 14 goblins when you start off on easy mode to 7 different million enemy types all moving at light speed when you start playing some of the higher difficulties. And especially if you bring some friends, oh my god, you will be in for quite some time. This game can go up to 4 players, I believe, and I believe the enemies also scale to multiplayer. So yeah, there is a lot of content, especially if you plan on going through the series 1, 2, and Awakened. There's a stupid amount of content, bunch of classes, bunch of upgrades, a bunch of towers, and most importantly, a lot of levels and challenges. So if you're more of a strategy type guy and you just want to sink your brain into something that will use your brain, try out any of the Dungeon Defenders games. Especially, they go on sale for very, very cheap. Dungeon Defenders 2 is actually free to play, but I know Dungeon Defenders 1 goes on sale with all DLC for like $4 Canadian, so that's like borderline free American or whatever. So if you see it on sale or you just want to try a free one like Dungeon Defenders 2, highly recommend. Great pickups, and good luck out there in Etheria. Next up on the list, we have the OG classic of time-wasting games, Civilization 5. And well, yes, I'm sure this can apply to Civ 6 and a bunch of the other entries in the series. Civ 5 is the one that really cemented itself as the okay, goodbye the next 300 hours type game. So the problem with this game is I have this much hours in it, and I have finished exactly two full games of this game. Both had to be single player because a multiplayer game never actually ended up going to completion. So pretty much the point of Civ, it is like it's like a turn-based RTS, which doesn't actually make sense at all, but it's like a turn-based tactical kind of game where you build up your civilization from nothing. You get, you know, different like places, I want to say. You can build science, faith, culture, you get monuments, world wonders. You literally build up like a real life civilization, and you pit it against other civs, and there's different ways to win. But the thing is, the game just takes a long time, even on the quickest mode, to actually come to a conclusion. Which, to be fair, seeing that the game is based on life, yeah, that kind of makes sense. So TLDR, what you do first is you pick your country or world leader of origin. In Civ 5 specifically, you pick your country. I personally like to play as Russia or the Shoshone in this game. One of them, the Shoshone, is like absolutely busted, and Russia is just kind of like a fun, feel-good quality of life Civ, so that's the one I pick mostly. So then you load into your game, you have your capital city, and then you start going. You get some scouters to scout out the area, you get some workers to start building some stuff, and then, you know, you eventually get some more cities, and you start building up your country, and the other players in the game either real or AI controlled, start doing the same. But then you gotta focus on winning. And there's a couple ways to win. You can A, just straight murder all the other civs, which is honestly harder than it sounds, but that is, you know, world conqueror and number one rule, just kill everyone else and you're the victor, yeah. Then there's the science victory, which requires you to build 3 parts of a rocket ship, assemble the rocket ship, and be the first one to shoot the rocket to the moon or whatever, which, you know, if you want to go into a science-based civ, I think like Korea and Babylon are both insane science-based civs. You can start, you know, building up your rocket ship. You can do a culture civ, which I think is the like Brazil special, where you just get a bunch of culture, you get world leader points, and you pretty much just win via politics, which is, maybe not the most exciting, but definitely one of the more effective ways to win. And then lastly, you get the religion ending, which is spreading your faith and pretty much just making everyone believe in whatever religion you came up with, either an existing religion or one you made up yourself, and then you make everyone believe in your religion and then you win the game. Honestly, I haven't experimented much with it, so I'm not sure, but those are the main ways to win the game. There is technically like a 5th way where it's if no one hits a victory condition, the person with the most overall points just wins, but you know, me and my friends normally play with that off because timeout victories are kind of lame. But as you can tell just from me explaining it, you just this all kind of stacks up and you really just get lost in it. So it's a next turn game. You click build on something, you go, okay, this round I want to do this, move this guy here, and then you click next turn. But then you keep clicking next turn, and all of a sudden it's turn 300 and you've built an army of Russian soldiers ready to stomp the world out. Like it really, I don't even know how to describe it. It's so slow paced that you feel like you're not making much progress, even though a lot of time is passing. So when you do feel like you've made progress, you realize it's been like 17 hours and it's 5 in the morning, which is kind of the problem. And if you're playing with friends, absolutely good luck. Waiting for your friends to click next turn in Civ has to be a torture I would not wish upon my worst enemy. If my friend's watching this video, you know who you are, buddy, and you better start clicking that next turn button a little bit faster. But to be honest, that's just kind of Civ. You build up, you go. There's a huge science tech tree you can get into. There's a huge like political skill tree, which sounds so weird. You can make a religion that does custom things depending on what you choose. There's so much to do, and they give you the time to do it. But in real life, that time translates a lot. You eventually get to like the super sci-fi era where you're dropping nukes on each other, and it's a bunch of robots, tanks, and shit walking around. But like, to be honest, how often are you really gonna get that far in a game with other players? Some people are committed and have like multi-thousand hours in Civ, but that's kind of my point, is that this game just siphons away your time spent on your life. You know, like when your life flashes before your eyes and half the time you see the German Empire, you're gonna be like, maybe I should have stopped playing some Civ. But I mean, if you want something where you and your friends can just go to war physically, mentally, and spiritually, maybe try Civ 5. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's a time waster, I'll tell you that much.
Take me through the night, down, down, down by the river.
Now, lastly on the list, we have a big titan in the gaming world as of recently, Baldur's Gate 3. And let me tell you, Larian Studios gets me with the whole time waste thing every single time they drop a game. And by that I mean, like, I've really only played Divinity 2 and Baldur's 3, but I mean, these games are too much, bro. There's too much content. It's kind of unfair. So for reference, in Divinity Original Sin 2, which was the game that came out before this, I have hundreds of hours. Like, look at this hour count, by the way, and I've made it to Act 2, the beginning of it. Like, bro, there's something about these games like Baldur's Gate 3 just scream like, I think I should make a new character, and then play through the first like 20 minutes of the game. I don't know why. You do it all the time, but you will find yourself dropping hours on just, not only just in the character creator, by the way, but then just like playing a new character. It's always you go a little bit and then make a new character, and I don't know how they keep roping me into this. Baldur's Gate 3 is a full D&D style RPG game where it's a huge quest and choices matter, yada yada yada. I'm assuming you know the deal. You've heard of Baldur's by now. You pick everything, bro. You pick your background, class, race, tech abilities, everything, and your companions, and then you go on like a 200-hour quest. It's too much, actually. It's actually too much. I'm just now finishing my first ever playthrough with over 100 hours into the game, and I feel like I did a bunch of side quests, but I feel like I missed so much. Like, this is a type of game where, like, especially in the Act 3 town, the game is split into 3 acts, right? In the town in Act 3, I feel like you can just talk to like any dude on the side of the road. He's like, yo, you want a quest? I got quest, bro. I got bear quest. You want a quest? You take a quest. And it's just so overwhelming at the amount of quests that you get. And especially earlier on into the game really pulls you in by your characters fully reacting to the choices you make and to, like, talking amongst themselves. Like, seriously, depending on the party members you choose, you could have a completely different experience. And honestly, just depending on every little thing you choose about your character, the world just fully blends around it, and it's so enthralling. It's really the game that pulls you into the whole idea of you are in a fantasy world the most. And as a big fan of fantasy games, yeah, I'm kind of happy with it, to say the least. So for reference of what my time's been wasted on in this game, I picked Warlock Half-Elf. Well, originally I picked Dragonborn because I'm kind of the dragon guy, but then the friend I was going to play through the game with just kind of left, and you know, multiplayer in these type of games is actually just not the way to go, turns out, at least in my opinion. So then I made a Warlock Half-Elf instead, and then I got to, I think it's the Underdark section of the game. If you played it, you know what I mean. It's like maybe like 8 hours in, maybe less or something. And then I made like 17 new characters with every single available class and got them all to the same part. And then I went back to my first character to actually finish the game, which is a lot of content, by the way. Act 1 and especially Act 3 are filled with stupid amounts of stuff, and Act 2, which I felt like went by a solid amount faster, it's still longer than like most full other games out there on the market. So yeah, needless to say, if you want stuff to do, Baldur's Gate 3 is got stuff for you to do. And as I'm sure you've heard the commotion, there is no DLC, no microtransactions, no battle pass, no whatever. You buy the game, and then boom, there you go. Drop 500 hours. Thank me later. See you in a couple years. Like Larian, that's so good, so good, so good. But anyway, if you like fantasy, even if you're not a fan of like the reading, role-playing type thing, you're like, what is this nerd shit, bro? Trust me. Try it out, bro. Everyone, the second they get into Baldur's Gate 3 character select, it's like cocaine for your senses. You're just like, yo, wait, what's elf do actually? Oh, wait, druid? Yo, now we're talking. Baldur's Gate 3 character select is mind-boggling with how much hours you can spend in just making your character alone to then go, oh yeah, this also comes with a bonus whole other video game for you to play. It's crazy. You'll waste hours going on quests. You'll waste hours just sitting, chatting with your companions, getting to know their life story. You'll waste hours trying to find the best deal with bartering with a bunch of different guys. You'll just walk around aimlessly and taking the view. There's so much to do. Another one of those Elden Ring type unlimited content games. So if you're into fantasy, even if you're not, if this has no interest to you whatsoever, still try this game, because I still bet after the character select you'll be like, you know, maybe I want to give it a shot, bro, maybe. And then once you see the world start molding to your decisions, you're like, you know, actually, I'm kind of liking this whole Dragonborn guy. Wait a minute, I'm that guy. And then you keep going and going, and oh my god, there's a billion items, a billion spells. It's crazy. Definitely try Baldur's Gate 3 out, but do beware, your time will magically evaporate in the process. And that's it. That's the video. Sorry this one took so long. I had some trouble with YouTube monetization things. But other than that, that is it for me. If you like the content and want a little bit more, consider checking out my second channel, link in the description. If you want to catch me live, it's also linked there. And, you know, maybe lick up that subscribe button for your boy. Help me out a little bit. But other than that, that's all from me. I will catch you in the next one, and have a good night.